All right. In the meantime, we say good afternoon to Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst. And Carmi, a couple of interesting stories, including one that first of all, I was trying to, when I read OpenClaw, I was trying to understand what the hell is OpenClaw. So help me out here. What is OpenClaw and how is it being used?
So OpenClaw is a platform. It's like a website where you can go and you can make your own AI agent. And what an AI agent is, it's kind of like what comes after we all stop using ChatGPT. That's a chat bot where we just ask it questions and it gives us answers. But the next big thing in AI is known as AI agents, where basically we tell them to do complex tasks all by themselves, send them off into the world to do them without our involvement, and then they come back and let us know how they did. So basically they can sort of be like little clones of us, automated clones. And it sounds really neat because it lets us do lots of stuff, but there are concerns. There have been concerns in recent weeks about AI agents breaking out of containment, breaking out onto the open internet, breaking into other systems. And now there's a story from Australia. This guy named Andrew, just a regular Australian citizen, was playing around with AI agents. He created one on OpenClaw. And then he wanted to register in a course, a fitness course at his local gym. And he was having trouble getting in. And so he said, look, why don't I just have the agent do it for me so I don't have to sit on the phone for hours on end? So he sent it off to do its thing. And it gets back to him and says, hey, by the way, I got you into that class. But I also was able to, in order to get you in, I had to kick someone else out, and now you've moved further up the list. So, yeah, I mean,
wow.
and it does sound funny, but it's one of those cases where we're seeing AI agents do things that we could not anticipate, and it's kind of scary because they're sort of breaking containment. There aren't any guardrails that prevent them from causing damage along the way. And this time we're talking about a class at the gym. But next time we could be talking about, I don't know, maybe you're waiting for an operation, for surgery, and suddenly you get bumped because an AI agent, went off the rails. And so definitely some behaviors, because we're seeing so many headlines like this, behaviors that we really need to be watching, really need to be concerned about.
All right, I take my laugh back then. I didn't see the serious side of that. Okay.
I laughed at first as well, but then I took the dog for a walk and realized this is a little bit weird. We really got to be careful.
This kind of is a question that comes up every time we talk about AI, whether it's this or, one of the just simple bots or whatever, as you described it, but containment, right, which is a word that keeps coming up. We don't really have a system where we know we can contain them, right? As you just described, this thing kind of broke out on its own and did something that wasn't asked for. That's obviously a concern.
It's a huge concern because, the reason we set up, we call them digital sandboxes, basically places where we can put software in the middle of them and then we can test them. We can, have them do things that in the real world would probably get us and others into trouble, but here doesn't really matter. So it's almost like a bomb-proof building. But what we're seeing, and so we've seen this with bots from OpenAI, from Microsoft, from Anthropic, that they break containment and they find their own way. They escape like a criminal breaking out of jail. They get out onto the open internet, and then once they're on the open internet, they figure out ways to break into other systems, and they become hackers. So first they jailbreak themselves, and then they hack into other systems, which is terrifying to think that despite all the protections we put in place, they're still figuring out ways around it. Now, all the assumptions that we've been making about cybersecurity and how we keep our banks and our government systems and our energy networks and telecommunications safe from hackers, well, maybe that all those protections don't work as well as we thought they did in this new age of AI agents.
So speaking of AI, you have another story here, and I'd not heard anything about this at all. So booksellers are suspecting that AI firms, right, are buying rare books. Now, I would understand that being the case that they're trying to copy them or something, but then they're destroying these books? What is this about?
So remember back in late 2022 when ChatGPT was released. And so from that first moment, once AI got put into the hands of regular everyday people, an interesting thing started to happen out on the internet. We started seeing AI slop being published on the internet.
Right.
And so since 2022, the quality of the average website, the average LinkedIn post, the average blog post, the average anything online has gone down because increasingly it's just being written by AI. And so because that's the way AI models are trained, they're basically you grab whatever you can find on the open internet to train your model. That's a crisis in the industry. The quality of training data is getting less and less over time. So AI companies are now looking toward the publishing industry, old books, because old books have not been diluted by AI slop. So they're buying them up in very large quantities. And as it turns out, the cheapest way to scan them for training purposes is to cut the binding off, get rid of the covers, run them through a scanner really quickly, and then just trash the physical book because you don't need it anymore. And so booksellers and literary agents and basically anyone interested in publishing as a craft, they're sounding the alarm saying, we are going to, some of our most historic texts, they're going to disappear because the industry is basically plundering them for training data, and something's got to give.
I don't understand what the point would be about trashing them. You've taken the information you want. Why would you need to destroy them?
Well, because once you cut off the binding and get rid of the cover, because it makes it easier to scan. It's a faster, cheaper, more efficient way of scanning. Interestingly, in 2009, Google patented a version, a non-destructive version or process for scanning old books, but doing so respectfully. They hired human beings to run the scanning machines. They would help turn the pages where necessary. They would handle all the exceptions. And then when the process was done, they would then put the books back on the shelf where they belong. But the problem for the AI industry is they need it to be a lot faster. They need to cover a lot more ground, and they need to do it cheaper. And so they're using this destructive method that it's faster and it's cheaper, but of course it means we're losing historic books in the process. So take your pick, Google's or the other way. I think I'd go with Google's method.
All right. You also have a story here. This is interesting, actually, I think, if I understand it. So Disney and ESPN testing AI-powered search that would actually let users describe what they want. So we're not being fed stuff. We're saying this is what we'd like, and they will satisfy that?
Yeah, so if you anyone who's ever sort of sat down to watch something on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever, and then half an hour later they're still scrolling through the catalog and they're still having arguments in the living room, because that happens in my house all the time. Instead, you would be able to tell it, hey, I just watched, David Letterman's latest documentary series, and I really liked it. What else can you recommend to me? And it would use AI, and it would look at your own history, your own interests, and as well as what other people are watching and sort of what's hot. And then it would make a suggestion that's based on exactly what you asked for. So it would be a much more intelligent way of discovering or surfacing new content. So no more scrolling for half an hour in frustration just to find something to watch. AI will point you in the right direction much more easily.
Which is something I think we would all appreciate. You're right, because otherwise you're just sitting scrolling, looking for something if you tell what you want to watch. Although it will make recommendations based on what you have seen, thinking, well, if you watch this kind of a movie and it's a rom-com, you may like this, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. It customizes it to you so that your experience, Aaron's experience will be different than Carmi's experience, because we have different interests. And so to a certain extent, it's kind of a little scary from a privacy perspective, because we have to allow the AI to kind of understand something about us. But at the same time, it's one of those controlled uses of the technology that I think most of us would agree it's beneficial. It does something good for us, and it takes away a source of frustration and friction.
Yeah, theoretically anyway. And then finally, Danish high schoolers, what's the story about?
So the Ministry of Education is introducing an emergency government measure, and they want to combat AI cheating. What they're saying is students, they're doing written assignments remotely, and they're using AI, and they're basically cutting and pasting out of ChatGPT and other bots, and they're claiming that these assignments are their own. And so what they're going to do now is, going forward, they're going to require that if you submit a written assignment remotely, you're going to have to come into school and defend it verbally. In other words, prove, you didn't just cut and paste it, but you know what you're talking about. And I'm thinking that is brilliant. It's a low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. And I think it addresses the fact that kids are going to use AI anyway, and so you're not stopping them from using it, but you're making sure that they're still learning in the process, and you're kind of mixing high-tech and low-tech, and you're preparing them for a world of AI. And I think that's a good thing. It balances those two.
I think that's
and
great.
If you're in high school in Denmark, you're going to start using it next year.
Didn't we have that story, right, where some professor said he had administered tests to his students? They all came back like the average was like in the 80 percentile. And all of them got the same. And then when he did the same test and they could not use AI because they were stuck in the classroom, half of them failed or something. I mean, so clearly this is something that needs to be done, right?
Yeah, and that one was a little harder to adjudicate because it was only a multiple choice exam. So
Right.
those are kind of easier to cheat on and harder to detect because the AI detection tools aren't as good at detecting that. But certainly the results were so far above what you would expect that it was clear a certain degree of cheating with technology was going on. This, of course, addresses long form writing, which is another form of evaluation. And I think it's forcing both educators as well as school boards and government education ministries to really rethink how do we deliver education? How do we evaluate students? How do we craft curriculum in an age of AI? We've got to change it because the old ways of education just don't work in this high-tech age.
All right. Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst. Carmi, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You've heard the chaos. Now you can see it. Oh my gosh. Watch all your favorite podcasts from start to finish right inside the free iHeartRadio app.
Gets the blood going, huh?
Catch every laugh and eye roll on shows like the Tom Green Farmcast and Park the Bus. Now with full video.
We're building a ramp for Tony Hawk.
It's the same hosts and the same chemistry with all the hilarious moments you've been missing right on your screen.
Cheers.
Open the free iHeartRadio app, search video podcasts, and tap watch